are such terrific advocates for good health policy in this community.
Thanks very much. I might just ask, if it's okay, if there are local journalists first and then we'll go.
Minister, why not look at an alternative route through the tablelands from Cairns, given B-doubles can't use this road?
Because the advice that we have is that this is the most effective way. We take advice from the Queensland Government, and the advice is that this is a safety project that is an absolute priority.
Is there a recognition that after this work is done, though, that an alternative should be looked at?
Well, there's a recognition that we need to get this job done. This is a $490 million project. This is a very significant investment indeed. There's a recognition that 9,000 vehicles travel on this road every day. Around about 1,100 of those are heavy vehicles.
Does Cairns Airport's strategic location warrant a similar intervention to the Port of Darwin, given it's also for sale? And would you intervene in the sale of Cairns Airport to make sure it stays Australian-owned?
Well, Cairns Airport, of course, is an important asset. What has happened for most airports around Australia, including Darwin, is that superannuation funds have invested. So we want to see, wherever possible, governments only intervene in terms of ownership if there is market failure. So we'll await that process. If there is any bids, then there's a need to go through the Foreign Investment Review Board. I tell you what we're not doing is doing what the Commonwealth Government did under the former government, which is to provide a cash incentive to flog off assets. That's what occurred with Darwin Port, where $19.5 million was provided by Commonwealth taxpayers to the NT government as an incentive for them to flog that asset.
Just to be clear, this is a full knockdown rebuild. How long will this specific stretch of road be out of action for?
Look, we'll work with, of course, one of the things that the Commonwealth does is we're the funder. We'll work with the Queensland Government. I've spoken directly with Premier Crisafulli about the project, and they will, of course, manage the project. That's the way that infrastructure rollout occurs.
Prime Minister, we are in an area that has been LNP heartland for a long time. Does Labor intend to take it back? And also, do you have a message for Peter Dutton and his father tonight?
Well, firstly, on that, I spoke with Peter Dutton yesterday before the debate. I sought him out when I heard the news. We had a private discussion. I wished him well, and of course, I wish, and I'm sure all Australians wish his father well as well at this difficult time. Peter is obviously very busy campaigning, and that's understandable. But of course, our health and the health of our family members always comes first. Sorry, and then I didn't want to connect the two things.
Okay. We're in an area that has been LNP heartland for a long time. Does Labor intend to take this back?
Well, I want to make this point. The only time the LNP have won this seat in the modern era is when Warren Entsch was the candidate. When he withdrew and wasn't the candidate, when he retired the first time, the Labor Party won the seat. He then recontested and won the seat. He's someone who has worked hard and is someone who's been welcome in my office a couple of times, making representations as any member of Parliament is. But his retirement and the replacement, frankly, with Jeremy Neal as the candidate, someone who wasn't supported in the pre-selection by Warren Entsch, is something that allows, I think, a greater opportunity for this bloke here, who is a local champion. He was a champion on the court for the Cairns Taipans, but importantly as well, he's a champion off the court. He's already delivering with $245 million for this project. He's delivering for roads, hospitals. Every school in this electorate, a public school, will get additional funding as a result of the deal that we've done. And his opponent, you know, is a shocker. His opponent, someone who at the campaign launch was handing out MAGA-inspired material. He's someone who has promoted anti-vax ideas during COVID. He's someone who's called for the complete defunding of the ABC, which is so vital in a community like this, when there are floods and natural disasters, the ABC plays a particular role in regional communities. He has said in an area that is dependent upon tourism, he has said that China is, to quote him, a grub of a country. Now, calling an entire country a grub of a country, direct quote, is just extraordinary. The difference is that I'm sure Matt, like myself for a long period of time, we want to see more tourists come from China as well as from Japan and from the region, from the United States, from the UK, from Europe, coming here from India with direct flights here and in and out of Cairns Airport. This bloke, it's hard to see how he'll attract economic activity for what is one of Australia's target markets. I mean, you know, there's a bit of talk today about gas from Peter Dutton. Well, you know, he doesn't need gas for his cookers. If he wants to find cookers, he can just look at his party room because it's full of it. He got rid of the Whitlam candidate. Now he's got another one who's got problems. This guy here's a shocker, and people shouldn't vote for him. You know, we need mainstream candidates. This bloke here will be a mainstream candidate for the Labor Party, and people of this electorate should vote for Matt Smith.
PM, since we last spoke, President Trump has also said that he's had world leaders on the phone to him, quote, kissing his ass. You haven't been one of them. Are you now vindicated for your decision not to pick up the phone and call him, as Peter Dutton has been requesting? And Matt Smith, do you think you've got Enchi's vote, or do you think it's your opponent who's got Enchi's vote on May 3?
Well, on the first term that you used, I haven't seen those comments from President Trump, but that's not the way that I deal with leaders. I deal as an equal with countries that I engage with. I had a discussion with Keir Starmer on Friday night. I deal, and I've dealt the two conversations I've had with President Trump, ones in which I stand up for Australia's national interest, and I will always do that.
I caught up briefly with Warren this morning after a debate. We had a very pleasant chat. I've always liked Warren and got along with him well. I'm not going to speak on who he's going to vote for. That's a private matter between Warren and the ballot box, as it should be for everybody.
Did you ask him?
I did not.
Thanks.
You've bounced around answers on this question before, but can you just be really clear? Can you rule out any changes to negative gearing and capital gains tax?
Yes.
settings
How hard is it
if
for the
re-elected?
50th time?
And will you rule
Just
out
here.
using
Just here.
negotiated
Just here.
with the Greens in horse
To
trading?
form a government?
No, in horse trading for votes on other matters.
What are you talking about? Sorry.
If the Greens come to you and you need their vote to pass legislation, will you rule out changing negative gearing settings and capital gains tax?
Yes, and you might have noticed, I mean, you're a state correspondent, but let me explain. There are 25 votes we have in the Senate. In order to get legislation through, we're in that situation, have been in that situation for this entire term. We have stuck to our position. In our position, let me explain the difference of what tax policy is in this country. Labor, Matt Smith, if you vote for him and he's part of a government, then we will give income tax cuts to you and to all 14 million Australians. If Peter Dutton wins, he will introduce legislation to increase the income tax of all Australians, all 14 million of them.
Prime Minister, will you be watching the debate tonight between Jim Chalmers and Angus Taylor? And given you won the debate last night, do you have any words of advice for the Treasurer on how to win?
Jim Chalmers doesn't need advice to debate Angus Taylor, with respect. Angus Taylor, I'm surprised he's making another appearance during the election campaign. One of the differences between the teams here, and I'm captain of our team, is I am proud that I don't have to play every position. This bloke's a fantastic health minister. The work that Nita Green has done in being the special envoy for the Great Barrier Reef, I've got a fantastic team across the board. Angus Taylor, I saw the interview that Angus Taylor had with Billy Fitzsimons. I did see that online during a flight, and my goodness, Billy Fitzsimons really towed up the facts that he got wrong. He said about inflation that it was rising and it's falling to 2.4%. He was wrong about wages. He was wrong about the surplus and the deficit, just as Peter Dutton was wrong last night when he purported to say that the budget was in balance at the time that the government changed. Let me remind everyone that under my government, in the last 3 years, people have been going through cost of living pressures like the rest of the world with global inflation. But inflation had a 6 in front of it. It's now down to 2.4. Employment has grown with more than 1 million jobs. Unemployment's at 4.1%. Real wages have increased. The last 5 quarters in a row, they went backwards. 5 quarters in a row when they were in office. Interest rates have started to come down. They started to rise before the last election, and we turned a $78 billion deficit into a $22 billion surplus, followed that up with a $15 billion surplus, and then this year have halved the anticipated deficit that was projected. That's my government's record, and I'm sure that Jim Chalmers will not only talk about that tonight, Jim Chalmers will also speak about our vision for future economic growth, for how we continue to take pressure off people through measures such as tax cuts.
Prime Minister, the Greens have
Just
it's, as you said, it's an evolving situation, and you've spoken to Keir Starmer more recently than Donald Trump. Could you shed any light? Is Australia talking to the UK or the EU or any other jurisdictions about presenting some sort of united front in response to Donald Trump's Liberation Day tariffs?
I think that around the world you will have seen the comments that have been made. People understand that tariffs are an act of economic self-harm, that they impose a cost on the country that is imposing tariffs.
Prime Minister, the Greens have been described by members of your cabinet.
Obsessed with the Greens.
Yeah, no, I've got a question.
You're a
about
bit
that.
obsessed. Well, I'm the Labor leader, by the way.
But they've been described by members of your cabinet as crazy, having thrown their lot in with thuggery and lacking relevance by you this morning. Given this, can you rule out that Labor will make preference deals with the Greens in the upcoming election?
Look, preference deals, I've been asked about it every day, very clearly. Those things matter for the organisational wing. What I'm responsible for is what the parliamentary party does. What we do is we will seek to be a majority government. We won't negotiate with the Greens before, during, after the election about those matters. I've been very clear about that. I've been clear about that for a decade, and I refer you to my previous 324 answers. Thanks very much.
Does it make